Now, it's 11 days left before South Africans cast their votes in the upcoming local government elections. And among some of the concerns that have been raised by environmental activists is that political parties' manifestos do not include the issue of climate change. One environmentalist says this is symptomatic of the broader climate denialism in South African politics. Well, Charles Simane, who is a climate justice charter movement activist, joins us now to expand on this argument. And Ndade Simane, thank you for your time today. Talk to us about this phrase that has been used about South African political parties being in a state of denialism about climate change. Talk to us about that assertion.
Thank you very much, Tammy, for having me. After looking at the various manifestos of political parties, we have seen such outstanding ignorance with regards to the issue of the climate crisis. Now, what worries us the most is that the climate crisis is hitting the poor of the poorest. The climate crisis is hitting hard the middle class, the people who don't have the resources for mitigation and for adaptation. Now, what we have seen from these political party manifestos is the lack of ignorance. They do not prioritize mitigation and adaptation to the climate crisis. Now, the science is already warning us that a 1.5 degree global overshoot for us in Southern Africa, who are warming at about twice the global average, that will mean a 3 degree increase in temperature within this decade. Now, that will decimate our maize crops, that will decimate our livestock. So we need local government officials to prioritize an understanding of the climate crisis so that they can encapsulate it in their planning. Because we need to plan for all of these climate catastrophes that are already happening and that are coming. We need to plan for the fact that the climate crisis is already hitting our water supplies hard. Within the next 10 years, South Africa's water demand will outstrip supply by 17%. Now, this will perpetuate the severe drought conditions that many people across the country are experiencing. Now, Day Zero may no longer be making news headlines because it is not in Cape Town. But the fact of the matter is there are several communities around the country who are living in perpetual Day Zero. And the science tells us we are going to see way more climate shocks, more cyclonic storms happening at a regular and a more severe basis. So if we have a local government that is not prepared to deal with those, then as a country we are in trouble.
So talk to us about whether the issues of regulating and planning for climate change is within the jurisdiction of local government.
Well, what local government should be prioritizing is adaptation and mitigation, because local government is the first point of contact for many people in South Africa, right? If you have water shortages, at the first contact is the local government. If you have decimated food supply, at the first contact is local government. So although local government does not have the power to change national policy, but local government as the first contact of the people should be prepared to deal with many of these climate emergencies that are coming and that we are already experiencing.
Why is there then a seeming lack of focus to issues of climate change in local government and on the local government level? Why does there seem to be a deficit of information, planning and action?
Well, if you look at the ANC is pursuing the gas amendment bill. The ANC is pursuing the upstream petroleum development bill. So that tells you the ANC is not serious about decarbonization. If you look at the opposition parties, they simply want to make Eskom more efficient at emitting more greenhouse gases, cementing South Africa's place as a carbon criminal state. And we have to make South Africa's politics about climate justice, because the fact of the matter is the climate crisis is already hitting hard many populations. It's exacerbating the already existing inequalities. If you look, for example, at drought-affected communities, you find that women are at the forefront. Women and girls are the hardest hit in drought-affected communities. They have to bear the climate shocks and the responsibility of securing water for the family. So the climate crisis is making the many social inequalities, the existing power relations, exacerbating them and making them worse. And local government, being where people live, where people socialize, has to be at the forefront of climate adaptation and mitigation. And unfortunately, you don't see that with these manifestos.
When you look at the manifestos and what political parties will want to do, is clearly address the issues that seem to be pertinent, the issues that are top of mind for the voters, what voters care about, the issue of housing, of clean water supply, of even job creation and safety within their communities. Why do you believe that climate change has not made it into those manifestos? Is it because maybe the voters and communities are themselves ignorant of the impact and the effects of climate change, and therefore are not directly holding local municipalities to account and even holding political parties to account on that level using that terminology?
Well, exactly, Tammy. Those are the reasons. You put it quite correctly. You find in South Africa that in most of our politics, many people don't even look at the political party manifestos when going to vote. It's about who they like and so on and so forth. However, local government has to be prepared because the science tells us within the next 5 years, we will be having another El Nino-induced drought. So the climate crisis has not made it into the language of our politicians, and in fact into the language of South Africans as a whole, which is what we are pushing for, because we are experiencing these multiple crises which are exacerbating the already social inequalities and crises that we are facing as a nation. And if we are going to embark on a just transition in our society, then this is what we have to do. We have to really criticize these political parties for their failure to deal with the existential threat of our time.
Is there not a gap, though, to be educating communities as well about the effects of climate change, exactly what it is and how it ends up manifesting in their day-to-day lives?
Absolutely. We have been working with many rural communities for a very long time. And you find that in many rural communities, they do not have an awareness or a knowledge of the climate crisis. You find that it's mostly the middle class that understand the climate crisis. So there is a lot of climate education that still needs to be pursued. And the media has a very important role to play in this. If you are going to create a climate conscious society, then the media has a leading role to play, because understanding of the climate crisis reflects South Africa's social inequalities and stuff like that.
Mr. Charles Simane, thank you very much for an important and pertinent conversation now, the issue of climate change and how that affects communities directly, and the lack of focus that political parties have thus far shown in this issue, specifically in the run-up to these local government elections. Thank you for your time, sir. That's Mr. Charles Simane. He is an activist at the Climate Justice Charter Movement.